Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
After returning to the Star Wars universe in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, Jar Jar Binks actor Ahmed Best is amped up and ready for a future in the franchise. Ahmed Best, who is most infamously known for his work in the Star Wars prequel trilogy as Jar Jar Binks and back in the sci-fi spotlight, after appearing as Jedi Master KELLERAN BEQ in Chapter 20 of Disney Plus flagship Star Wars series, The Mandalorian. And although there are plenty of other explanation videos out there on KELLERAN BEQ, of course I have my own, this isn't the first time that we've seen Jedi Master KELLERAN BEQ, and that he has appeared in Star Wars before in the Jedi Temple Run challenge show here on YouTube. However, seeing this character come into canon and coming into The Mandalorian and playing such a prominent role is beyond amazing. And as I had mentioned, KELLERAN BEQ is not a new character in Star Wars, having hosted the children's game show Jedi Temple Challenge, but this is the first exposure the general Star Wars fanbase has had to the character, and thus the first time they have seen Ahmed Best back in the universe since he had played the bumbling Gungan Jar Jar Binks in the prequels. And so seeing as Ahmed Best's character is depicted saving Grogu from the traumatic events of Order 66, many are wondering if the character will have further adventures in the Lucasfilm universe. However, all of this being said, what is the likelihood of Ahmed Best returning in the Star Wars franchise just in general, maybe cameoing as another character, or even then the return of KELLERAN BEQ? After his return as KELLERAN BEQ in The Mandalorian Season 3, many fans want some type of mini spin-off series, something in animation maybe, of where they have adventures of Grogu and, well, KELLERAN BEQ. There definitely does seem to be more story to tell with this character here as well. What happened with Grogu and KELLERAN BEQ after they had fled the planet of Coruscant? How are the two separated? There are still so many more questions. Answering this one big Star Wars question of who was the one that had rescued Grogu, I really think spins off so many more other questions. And so while speaking in a recent interview on the back of his triumphant Star Wars return in The Mandalorian, Jar Jar Binks and KELLERAN BEQ actor Ahmed Best teased his future in the franchise. Speaking with StarWars.com themselves, Ahmed Best noted that being a part of the Star Wars universe has been a dream come true since 1997, when he had first been recruited for the role of Jar Jar Binks in the 1999 prequel, The Phantom Menace. He had pointed out how, despite audience reaction to his character of Jar Jar Binks in the franchise, Jar Jar changed movies, and to be a part of that is an enormous thing for him, saying that in full quote, Jar Jar changed movies, and I don't think Jar Jar gets a lot of credit for changing movies, but Jar Jar has the first CGI main character in movie history, being one of the main first CGI characters. There had been other CGI characters, but the evolution of the fact that you can star as a CGI character, as a main character, and an actor and performance capture was really George Lucas, was really Jar Jar and Isla M, and all of us. And it was a significant change in movies, and so to be a part of that was enormous for me, says Ahmed Best while speaking on StarWars.com. And he does really have a great point. I mean, yes, Jar Jar did change movie history, being the character, one of the first main characters to be completely CGI. It was incredible and unheard of at that in 1999. The Mandalorian and prequels actor had laminated that after coming back in the Disney Plus series, part of him doesn't want to let it go, saying that in full quote from Ahmed Best himself, especially me coming from the South Bronx, this corny, artsy, nerdy, skinny kid, where Star Wars was the first movie that he had ever seen in his life. Now coming back, being in The Mandalorian, part of me doesn't want to let that go, ending the quote right there. So really, not only was Star Wars one of the first, like a break for Ahmed Best, being one of the first big movies that he had ever been in, but it was also one of the first movies that he had ever seen, period, being probably A New Hope or something in the original trilogy. Ahmed Best had also added that at the time of The Phantom Menace, you had to let it go, but now you can do it for a while, telling Star Wars stories with the same characters across multiple mediums, saying that in full quotes, in The Phantom Menace days, you had to let it go. It was just George doing it. Now you can do it for a while. You can tell stories in Star Wars and have them be in multiple mediums, ending that quote right there. I really think that he is referring to other things rather than just like live action. So also animation, comic books, just novels in general, video games even. Also pointing out the idea that back in the Phantom Menace days, it was just George Lucas doing it. He would bring you in, you would play a specific character, and well, that would be it. And George didn't really have much of a plan for telling more of these stories necessarily like Disney has, kind of in a way monopolizing it all. Which from a certain point of view can be good or bad. Some people see that as Disney Disney milking the crap out of the franchise, while others see that yes, there are so many undiscovered corners of a galaxy far, far away, and so many more stories to be told. So then also referring to that you're able to come back now in this day and age with now Disney being the owner of the franchise, the overall Star Wars franchise, and they're able to bring you in to play other different characters. Ahmed Best says that as a writer and a director now, Best doesn't want this to be the end of his Star Wars story in a galaxy far, far away, saying that in full quotes, as a writer, as a director now, as a teacher now, there is so much more that I want to do that this universe is perfect for, that I don't want this to be the end of a legacy. I don't want this to be the end of the story. I want this to be the beginning, and a new beginning at that, especially through KELLERAN BEQ. Ending that quote right there, he feels refreshed, really. It's a new start. It's a rebirth, pretty much, bringing him back into the Star Wars franchise after playing the clumsy Jar Jar Binks in the prequels, receiving so much hate, but still wanting to come back and actually pursue this dream and continue on this legacy of just being in Star Wars, the Star Wars legacy of what it is. We don't deserve Ahmed Best. I mean, he's just too amazing and too wholesome to come back our way. But also noting that, especially through KELLERAN BEQ, I feel like that he wants to come back again as KELLERAN BEQ. So there is that, and then as I had also mentioned earlier on, there are other stories to tell with this character, I feel like. As I had mentioned, yes, you're answering probably the biggest Star Wars question as of now, of who was the one that had rescued Grogu during those events of Order 66, but it sparks so many other questions of what happened to this pair, this duo, after those events, after they had fled the planet of Coruscant. How were they separated? And even then, other questions of maybe how they came to be. How did these two actually meet? Why did Yoda, Baby Yoda, Grogu, go and meet with KELLERAN BEQ, and all of that type of stuff? Ahmed Best had opined that he really cares about how KELLERAN BEQ will be received, and wants fans to look at his Jedi character and go, I want to follow that guy. Where does he go? In the sense of course, for one thing, like, he's just a cool character. You want to be like him for one thing, but for another fact of following his journey. He has an interesting story, as it seems so far, and there's so much more to this character. Saying that in full quotes, I really care about how KELLERAN BEQ will be received. I know this might not be cool to say, but I want everyone who watches Star Wars to look at KELLERAN BEQ and go, I believe that guy. I want to follow that guy. Where does he go? What happens next? I think all of the best stories are stories that leave you wondering what happens next. Ending that quote right there, Ahmed Best, that is exactly what you guys did with KELLERAN BEQ. You could have done it better. Ahmed Best did say that this is why he thinks Star Wars has endured as a franchise, because of all of these characters are characters who have lives outside of what the fans see, read, play, or hear. Saying that in full quote, I think that's why Star Wars has survived as long as it has, because all of these characters are characters who have lives. Ending that quote right there into reference that we want to know, like, just about every other tidbit about these characters. They're just so interesting and intriguing, really, in the aspects of maybe what the Star Wars The Clone Wars animated show has done. We want to see every minute of it, like what happened between those years of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. What went wrong with Anakin Skywalker during those years is a big thing, and they're kind of continuing on and doing that. More things, more projects, more shows, more comics, more explanations of these characters is what fans want. This year, all being said, is Ahmed Best done with Star Wars, or does he have more of a future as KELLERAN BEQ? I think it kind of speaks for himself. He wants to come back for sure, and that there are more stories to tell with KELLERAN BEQ, whether he knows them or knows what he wants or not. While his Mandalorian appearance could very well be the last time that fans see Ahmed Best and his Jedi Master KELLERAN BEQ in a galaxy far, far away, it seems like that there are more stories to tell with this character. So to even see him appear and pop up somewhere even like in the current timeline of The Mandalorian rather than in a flashback again, I think could very well be a potential thing to see. And it really did take very long for Ahmed Best to get into this place, and it would be a shame for Lucasfilm to squander that and really brush over it. I think that they need to continue on with it. There's more to it. This was an actor that was on the verge of taking his own life because of his time in Star Wars and all of the hate that he had received to no fault of his own. He was lauded by fans, received death threats, and was the subject of toxic hate that went on for years after the prequels had all come out. So as I had mentioned, to see him returning is beyond amazing, and as a Star Wars fans, don't deserve it. Now more than 20 years since his Phantom Menace premiere, those wounds have seemingly healed. He has been celebrated by fans not only recently for his work in The Mandalorian, but also in his time in the prequels. Jar Jar is a character that has come to be more beloved as each year passes on, especially as us prequel kids begin to grow up and take more appreciation to those movies and what they have done for our childhoods. back in the day, those haters, those toxic fans were grown men, and more than likely the same people that had grew up with the original trilogy. It was just out of their aspects, and they didn't like it, and they didn't know how to take that dislike out other than just pure hate on the guy. So, do you want to see the return of KELLERAN BEQ and Ahmed Best just in general in a galaxy far, far away? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys all think. I'll catch you guys in the next one. This has been Unofficial Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always, guys. Have a great one. Peace out.